I'm proud and excited to announce that the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is now available. I've put the links to grab your copy from Amazon worldwide in the show notes, and I can't wait to see what you think. As a thank you for listening to the podcast, email podcast@rntfitness.com with your receipt, and we'll send you the free ebook version to start reading immediately. If you like a sneak peek of what's inside, you can download the first chapter at rntfitness.com/book. Also, you've heard me talking about the power of journaling for a long time, so I'm happy to announce we've now got customized RNT journals in store. There's a mix of prompts and freestyle writing, which you can take a glimpse of on rntfitness.com/journal. Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com, and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. On today's episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by Biraj and Sital Nakarja to talk about how their journey has evolved in the first 3 years. Biraj and Sital first came on the podcast for episode 58, which was awarded Client Podcast of the Year for 2018 to 2019. So I decided to bring them on for round 2 today to talk about their second photo shoot, how they've embraced new challenges, and how they've used the physical as the vehicle to start new businesses, pick up new skills, and take everything they do in life to the next level. The real power of the journey shines through on this episode, and I can't wait for you to dive in. How's cup tea going? Letting loose with tea?
Yeah, so we pivoted because obviously everything's shut. So
China.
Yeah, and China's just a bloody nightmare. Because I mentioned to you, isn't it? We were meant to bring 6,000 face masks and it's still stuck there. Literally doesn't want to leave. I have to find someone to get it out of China into Hong Kong to kind of get it out. So I'm trying to get a connection like from one of my factories to like push it out. But yeah, I mean, we've just pivoted and we just focused on building the community and the platform and the new branding, the whole let loose. So we're just working on that. So we're in negotiations with the tea people into an exclusivity agreement. And just getting that, we're just looking forward. So we're thinking from September onwards, we can start ramping up again. But yeah, it's all right. It's just balancing the whole B's work, my work, homeschooling, and everything else in between. Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield because it's like I'm getting frustrated with him because he's working, but he's like, I don't like my work. And then I'm like, but let me do my work, but then he's making money and I'm not. So it's like this push and pull, constant, you're trying to balance this really delicate situation, but it is what it is. I'm do what I can. And the rest will happen later, I think.
How are you finding it, Biraj?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's been an experience for us because obviously I work from home and I usually do a day a week from home anyway. So working from home has not been new for me in that respect. But obviously when you're doing it every day, when you're doing it with the kids working and Sital trying to work from home and then also trying to kind of manage everything else, we've just had to put some systems in place and just sort of map it out. And actually it's worked quite well actually. I think right from the beginning of the lockdown we kind of just made some rules around stick to the routine, make sure that the kids don't kind of fall out of a standard school routine. So we make sure they get up on time and make sure they do all the things that they would do before they come downstairs on a normal school day. And actually that's worked well for them, and it's so easy to be able to just let them lie in a little bit more or let them go to sleep a little bit later because they don't have to kind of go to school the next day.
Yeah.
But that's the routine has really helped them and they've coped with it really well, I have to say.
Yeah, we get our up days like Shaden. I think he's a bit more outward because he's more expressive. So he'll be quite like, he'll have these mini outbursts, and sometimes you have to check yourself, because emotionally you're having to kind of manage. That's really stressful, is like managing other people's emotions when you don't think they're being affected by it. Like that's quite draining. Like, you know, like this morning he was like, oh, I don't want to do school, and I was like, no, but you have to do school. And then I was like, hold on a minute, let's not do this, I'll push him, let's not fight with each other. So I just picked him up and I just hugged him, and then he was fine. I gave him a chocolate biscuit, and then he was fine. But there is that kind of whole emotional roller coaster that they're going through. Like, Nayan's loving it because he's a bit of an introvert but an extrovert at the same time. So he loves being behind a screen and like doing Microsoft Teams and shouting with his massive headphones on. He's a
little bit older as well.
Yeah.
And he's at that age where he loves technology.
Yeah.
Like he loves. Yeah, if you allow him on a PlayStation all day, he'd love that. And
yeah.
Obviously, we don't.
No.
But all of our beliefs around minimal screen time has just gone out the window, because now from 8:15 until 4 o'clock every day, he's on a laptop in his online lessons and stuff like that. So it's kind of contradicted our beliefs slightly. But yeah, at the same time, he's been fully engaged. And actually for him, apart from being at home rather than in school, it's not been that different for him. He's pretty much, apart from obviously the physical activity and sports and stuff that you can't mimic. He's been doing really well. So with Shaylin's a little bit harder. He's only 5, so that makes it a bit tougher for him. But
he gets more frustrated with everything. Like even now, he's like, "Oh, why can't we do PlayStation?" I was like, "No." You know what I mean? But yeah, they're okay. We try and do as much fun stuff as possible. Like,
what's a typical day like?
So, well, one of us will get up. So we do alternate days, the gym thing. And then one of the other one will be getting our kids ready. So Nayan has to be on his laptop at 8:15. So he has to be ready, brush teeth, downstairs, breakfast sort of by 7:30.
Yeah, it's quite good actually, because his school have insisted that they're in school uniform for their online lessons.
Yeah.
So for him, he has to get changed into his uniform before he comes down, which I really like. At first, he's like, what do you mean I have to wear my uniform? But I really like that, because it just gets him into the zone.
Yeah.
And then we also kind of mimic a commute to school by just doing a quick round the block walk. So they feel like they're commuting and going to school, which really works well. It gets them into the headspace. So then, so typical day really is one of us will train, the other one will get the kids ready. Once they've had their breakfast, we'll go for a short kind of, literally it's like a only 2-3 minute walk around the block, but it just gets them into the right headspace.
Yeah.
And then his day begins at 8:15.
Yeah, and then Shaylan finish starts at 9. So then basically I've blocked out, sort of between 9 till basically lunchtime, I'm doing the homeschooling where I can. Bar the bit, sometimes I might have a phone call or a meeting, whatever that B needs to cut in. But 9 till lunchtime. And even lunchtime, I've actually set up a school lunch menu. So I'm not doing this, what do you want to eat? I've literally mapped out Monday to Saturday, literally this is lunch and there's a different thing every day. And I shop to that and there's no deviating from it. So today was like hot dogs. So they're having hot dogs. Tomorrow will be like sandwiches, so you're having sandwiches. So they can't fuss, because I haven't got time for messing around.
Or cooking like 2 different meals.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. So I'm being really strict on that. And then after lunch, B kind of chills out a bit. So he'll do their PE lessons or whatever they've got to do. And then I can log on and do bits and bobs here and there. Yeah,
I tend to have recurring meetings in the morning.
Yeah.
So actually it's kind of worked out well, because when I'm doing my recurring meetings, Sital's helping with the lessons, and then typically in the afternoon their lessons are PE or art or music or something like that. And so then Sital does her work in the afternoons and I help the kids do those activities. So that kind of works well. And then the day finishes around 4 o'clock for them, and then we'll take them out, assuming the weather's good, take them out on their bikes, go for a walk, something like that, just get that daily activity in. And by the time we get back, they've had an hour's walk or bike ride or something, and they're ready for dinner then. So up until that point, there is a really good structure, and that's worked really well for us. And to be fair, we try and follow similar sort of structures on the weekend now as well. Like obviously they don't have the homeschooling, but we all get involved in doing different arts and crafts and Lego building and stuff like that. So still keeping them occupied, because it's so easy otherwise just to sit in front of the TV or on a PlayStation or something like that. That's just the easy way out. And don't get me wrong, there are times where we will let them play on the PlayStation or just kind of do what they need to do. But that's have to earn that time more than anything else.
And I think the good thing is that because we had the time, so Shayden's learned to ride his bike, and I told you, right, I didn't know how to ride a bike until I was 35, and then once I started RNT, we kind of stopped riding bikes. I don't know why.
It's in the gym all the time.
We were in the gym all the time. Plus, Shish wasn't riding his bike at that point, so now he's learned. We all stopped going out, so that could take like a good couple of hours.
Yeah, it's been fantastic actually. Like we've never all been on a family bike ride before, and the kids love it as well now. So that's Nayan kind of has slightly grown out of his bike, so he's been using my bike, and he managed to pop both my wheels. He burst both the wheels last week.
So after all that, I was meant to be.
He went full pelt up a curb, but he didn't you had to lift the bike a little bit. He didn't lift the bike; he just went straight over the curb.
And I was like,
we just heard this massive pop, and he's basically burst both tires. So now we haven't got a bike for him at the moment. So,
I haven't got one for me.
Well, for you, but he was using your bike.
Yeah.
Honestly,
So now, I need to try and find a way to fix my bike. After all that, but apart from that, all good. I think
somehow surviving then.
Yeah, I think so. I think
I think to be honest, I think we're quite lucky the kids are the age that they are. If they were younger, I think it would be way harder.
Well, just so the listeners know, how old are you? How old are Shayden and Nathan?
So Nathan's 10 and Shayden's 5.
Yeah.
So I think even 5 is pretty tough. But even then though, they are, Shayden's still quite independent. Like he will still go, he can sit for hours playing Lego. Or the two of them still Shayden's he's a bigger boy, so he can take on physically playing with Nain in the garden, football or rugby or cricket or whatever. So it has worked well in that sense.
I think also we've got friends who have got Shaylin's friends at school, and so they're still an only child. They haven't got siblings, and I think one thing that we've really noticed actually during this period is how much closer the boys have got, and how much more they play together. And that doesn't mean that they don't argue, because they do. But that's natural. But what's been lovely to see is how they've come closer together as well, and how they're playing together in the garden, or Nayan's teaching him how to play a certain game, or whatever it may be. He does little football drills with him and stuff like that, which is really nice to see. So I think there's so much negativity going on around the world at the moment, but we have to look at the silver linings that are coming from this, and building a closer family unit has definitely been one of the silver linings for us. I think we would never have this sort of time together without the distractions of life.
I think even with me, with B and I, the fact that we are under one roof, it's easier to communicate. I'm finding before it was passing ships sometimes. Sometimes he would be rushing out the door to go into London. I'd be like, oh, hold on. And then then I'd forget my train of thought. And then by the time he comes back, I'd completely forgot. And these, when things are happening, we're almost downloading on each other. I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. We're working opposite each other. So I think that's really helped in terms of communication. We're having more fluid conversations, just more regularly, whereas before it was
it'd be over a WhatsApp or something like that, because we're physically not in the same place. And then by the time I get home from work, you're so focused on sorting the kids out, and then kind of having dinner and giving them a bath and then putting them to bed, and then before you know it, it's already sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we're usually in bed by 9:30, 10, because we normally one of us is getting up early the next morning to go to the gym. So actually that's been quite good actually, and I think it's like I say, not something that anyone obviously ever had considered, but there has been some silver linings for sure.
I think even from the business front as well, B is a lot more involved in the day-to-day aspect of things as well. Before, it was kind of sometimes I just forget something, or we just have daily downloads or chats about things, and he's giving me ideas, or I can actually physically show him what do you think of this now? So it's a bit more fluid. Whereas before it was a bit like, yeah, it was fine before, but it's just, I don't know. I think the dynamics have definitely changed. I think there's a lot more appreciation as well.
What you mean? You appreciate what I do more? Or the other way around?
No, it should be the other way around.
Yeah, it is. No, do you know what I have to say? Like, jokes aside, it is tough sorting the kids out, homeschooling, getting your own stuff done, cooking dinner. Yeah, it is tough. And I won't lie, I do have an even greater appreciation for what Sital does in the house.
Right.
Aww.
Yeah. But it is hard, like thinking like daily, oh my God, what am I going to cook? Like, what they're going to eat? How do I make this more attractive? Before it's okay. Yeah, you could cook. These guys. I mean, I'm meal prepping. He's kind of semi
meal prepping at the moment,
or we'll kind of tweak the menu so it kind of fits in with what B's doing. But it is hard work because they're like one day they'll be like, oh, can we get a takeaway? And I'm like, no. So then we just do fakeaways. So we've done the whole Wagamama fakeaway. We've done the
what the fakeaway?
Fakeaways, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we've recreated the katsu curry. The other day we recreated ping pong. So we had gyozos and chicken skewers, rice, broccoli.
And do you know what? It's really good, right? So you can have a really decent, clean meal as a family.
Yeah.
But you can have so much fun making it together.
Yeah.
And so we get the kids involved. So the katsu curry was great. And then, we even put the rice in a little bowl and then kind of let it set so that when you take the bowl off, it's in the shape that you would get when you go to Wagamama's and stuff like that. And the kids were like, I don't think they really kind of knew that how close we would get it to the real thing.
Yeah.
And, there's so many online recipe books flying around at the moment. So Wagamama's themselves, their recipe book is being shared through WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually use the proper recipes as well. So that's been really good. Fakeaways are definitely definitely a thing.
We're going to do a Nando's fakeaway next week. They know, and actually we kind of appreciate that family time as well. It's the first time actually Bea and I probably have cooked together.
Yeah.
Because I'm vegetarian, he's meat, so usually it's very separate. Whereas this time we're kind of doing it together, and I hope he's learning something new from me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not a huge fan when it comes to cooking, but again, it's just that newfound appreciation. And actually, I can understand why a lot of people cook to de-stress because I can, having done that over the last couple of weeks, you can understand there is a therapeutic side to cooking as well that gets your mind off everything else that's going on in the world and what's going on at work and stuff. You can really focus on that one thing, and doing it together as a family, I think, has actually made it even more enjoyable. So yeah, definitely fakeaways are the way forward. I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. Any other lockdown activities for people with children?
Yeah.
Have a good healthy lifestyle?
So one thing that I've unlocked and something I probably hidden was I love drawing. I love art. I love making things, all that kind of stuff. And touch wood, so are the boys. And there was probably a few evenings where we've actually sat in front of the TV, but we're actually doodling. So what we did was they were drawing loads of pictures. I used to give them black paper, sketchbooks, all that stuff. And they had created so much. So then I was like, well, what can we do with this? So then I was thinking, okay. And I said to me, let's raise some money. And why don't we just sell what they've drawn? So we actually did an online Facebook auction to raise money for the local food bank. So one of my cousins mentioned to me, she goes, instead of raising it for the NHS or whatever, do it for a food bank because they're really struggling at the moment. And I thought, great, it's something they can get involved in. They can understand a bit of empathy and the wider world and why we're doing this.
And it's a little bit closer to home because it's a local food bank.
Yeah.
So, they've seen the food bank in the local area and some of the things that they've been doing. So it's just made it a little bit more relatable for them. Whereas, the NHS are doing fantastic work right now. And there's a lot of focus around raising money for the NHS. But we thought, let's just do something for maybe a slightly smaller organisation that, maybe, a few £100 will make a really massive difference, whereas a few £100 for the NHS would obviously help, but maybe not as much as it would do for a smaller organisation. So we opted for that, and it actually turned out to be a huge success, didn't it?
Yeah. So we did this Facebook Live, And we made a little video which we put up beforehand of all the pictures they drew, and B and I had got like these like photo frames. We'd frame them all, call them names, which they got involved in.
Yeah, they were choosing the names of their art and stuff, which is pretty good.
And then we just put it online, and then we did a Facebook Live. We managed to raise, to date, we've raised about £700.
£711, yeah.
Nice.
And our target was 250, and they had 12 pictures.
Yeah.
So, they raised £711, which was fantastic. And even like, it was really amazing to see during the actual auction, when people were bidding, and like to see Nayan's face when it went, like we started the bidding at £5, and then it got to like 25, and then it got to 30. And even he was like, oh my God, people are actually paying 30 quid for something that I've drawn.
Yeah.
And what I think the one that went for the highest was about £60.
Yeah.
For one of his drawings, and he was gobsmacked and like amazed. And what that did was not only raise money for a fantastic charity, but for them it really helped their confidence. And what it's done now actually is it's excelled their want and need and interest to create more pictures. And so now they're trying new things as well, and it's started to rub off actually, because Sital introduced me to a new way of journaling called bullet journaling, or bujo. I don't know if you've come across it.
No, I've heard of it.
A lot of it is around doodling, and that's something that she's been doing a lot. And I kind of struggled a little bit, and as you know, I started journaling a while back, but I never quite got hooked on it. And I think it's because I was following a journal that basically was scripted and kind of had sort of the sections and the questions to answer. And I was struggling with that a little bit, because I felt like I wanted to go and say and write other things, but wasn't able to because I was trying to follow this structure. Anyway, this way of journaling has actually been quite interesting. And a lot of it is just about doodling or just bullet points. And I think it's kind of slowly rubbed off on me. I mean, like, I'm no way as good as Sital is when it comes to artwork, and some of the stuff that she's been doing on her iPad and in her notepad and stuff like that is brilliant. Like, I didn't even know she had that skill, and we've been married for 14 years. So it's amazing how situations like this bring out these skills and these passions that people have had for such a long time, but have never really had the opportunity to maybe do, or have the time to do.
And there's a lot of like free or low cost activities people doing. So there's someone, I can send you the link afterwards, but it's basically this woman, she's a photographer, and there's she does these online kids photography courses. And so Nayan's been doing this. I mean, some of his photography is brilliant. Like we had an SLR from years. I mean, it's like 10 years old. Well, 10 years old.
Yeah, it's like we don't even use it anymore.
So I just signed him up for it. It's a 4-week course. It was free, didn't cost anything. So he's just been doing that. We just get out of the garden, like even the simple thing of just playing. He's really good at playing with football or cricket. They're getting into cricket now.
Also making like little videos.
Yeah.
So I shared on Facebook recently the PE lesson that Shaylan did. And you know what? It was brilliant, right? And I think this is, I was thinking about this afterwards, and not only was it like lovely to see him do that, but the exercises he chose. Like, I didn't tell him what exercises to do.
Okay.
And it was amazing, right? Because so he does martial arts. So I asked him, look, you have to do a warm up. And so he just followed the warm up that they do in his martial arts classes. So I didn't have to guide him in that respect. But he then said to me also, he goes, Daddy, I want to do those push-ups where you lift the weights. And I was like, I didn't quite know what he meant first. I was like, well, show me. And then he started to do these like renegade rows. And I was like, where did he even learn that from? Because I don't have that in my plan. Sital doesn't have that in her plan. Like, I don't even know where he got that from. And he didn't obviously know what it was called. But so he did that, and then the squats and the lunges. And then obviously he sees us training in the gym. And so he wanted to do like some chest flies and things like that. And he always loves to jump on the cross trainer when he gets the opportunity. So it was just lovely for him to have that kind of desire to want to create a PE lesson, because as part of their school project, they have to do this thing called a time to talk. Where it's just a 5-minute, anything between 3 and 5 minute presentation. Now, usually they would do that in the classroom, but this time around they asked them to create a video. And that's what he decided to do. You know, other people showed their favorite toy or, you know, talked about their favorite book or whatever it may be. And he decided he wanted to do a PE lesson. So, you know, I think there is this kind of, he's been watching us for the last 2 years on our sort of fitness journey. And, you know, as much as we knew it was rubbing off on the kids, maybe we didn't appreciate or realize just how much. So I thought that was quite a nice thing when we sat back and looked at kind of what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think whether he knows it or not, there has been this kind of
generational impact
and this flowing of fitness and eating well and staying healthy that's you know, just transpiring on the kids without us even knowing it.
That brings us nicely onto what I want to talk about today in a lot of the podcasts, actually, because the last time you came on was episode 58. We're now in the 140s, so nearly 100 episodes ago you came on. And it's still the most played client podcast, which I know is the recurring background music in your house.
Do you know what? I say the story behind that, right? So at the RNT party, and I remember it so clearly. I stood at the back, just near the bar, and Sachin was stood next to me, and I think at that point you were just about to sort of announce like who it was and all the different people who were shortlisted or whatever it was. And I just jokingly said to him, I said, I can't remember, he said something about, oh, do you think it'll be you? And I was like, nah. I said, although, you know, I have been playing it on repeat for like ages, just to stand it with a chance. And literally, as I finished that sentence, you announced our names. And so it's kind of this running joke now that we've been playing it in the background, and that's the reason why it's the most played podcast. But
we don't.
No, we don't. Generally, we don't.
That's the music that's the music.
We were super humbled by that, though. I mean, never did we ever imagine that would be the case. And I still actually don't know why that might be the case. I don't know. Was it one of the first couples podcasts or something?
It might be one of the first couple ones, actually.
Yeah. But so many people have contacted us since saying that, you know, they've done something about their mindset or their health, and actually joined RNT. You know, so many people that have joined RNT off the back of that.
Recent one is Vikash. Obviously, he's my cousin.
Yeah. I forgot that he was your cousin. I only saw it. I saw the comments.
So he, and even yesterday, actually, there was actually one of on Biraj's family. One of his cousins messaged me on Instagram just saying hi, hello, and I said, oh, you know, she's on a weight loss journey, completely on her own, whatever, doing her thing. But I said to her, you know, well done, hats off to you, doing fantastic, keep going, you're smashing it. And even she was like, well, she goes, well, if you got it, we're her aunt and uncle. She was like, if you guys can do it, I can totally do it. You know, I realise I can do it. And it's just those little things. And I just said to her, I said, if we can inspire one person to go out there and do something, whether it's lifestyle or habit or whatever it is, that's great. Our job is done. That's all we wanted to do, really.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I mean, that podcast came out January the 8th, 2019. So it's been nearly 18 months now since we released it. So what's the journey been like in the last 18 months? So we've covered the first 18 months on that podcast. So if anyone who hasn't listened to it, make sure you check out episode 58. But since then, what's been the journey? We obviously we spoke about your photo shoot in September. That there's a lot that you'd wanted to discuss. But obviously that was now another 6 months ago. So let's what's been happening?
Well, I mean, for me, you know, obviously we had another photo shoot since that podcast. So I think the journey towards that second photo shoot was actually a very different journey for me. And so I think if there's one thing that I would recommend, and you know, I'm happy to discuss this further, but the one thing that I would recommend to everyone that's kind of on the journey at the moment, that has maybe already booked in a photo shoot or has maybe just done a photo shoot, is actually do another one. And the reason for that is that you will have learnt so much about the process and about yourself. What I found really interesting about the second time round was, of course, I'm still accountable to my coach and I'm still following a program and things like that. But at the same time, we had holidays during that period. We had way more social events during that period. I, put those strategies in place to allow me to have more of a social life and do the things that I didn't do the first time round.
Yeah.
And having been through a muscle building phase, my strength went through the roof as well. And so the end result was that much better. And, if you look at the two sort of photo shoot pictures, muscle building doesn't lie, right? Like if you follow the right process, you eat the right foods, and you train with the right intensity, the facts are there to be seen. Like you will put muscle on, you will look better the second time round. And I think how we did that this time was hugely different. For example, I don't think we had any HIIT training the second time round. Most of my cardio, if not all of my cardio, was steps. And we were hitting 20,000 steps way earlier this time round than we were in the first cycle. But I actually preferred that. I preferred doing more steps and less HIIT rather than the first way around. And because I hate doing HIIT, but that's okay, right? Like it's horses for courses. And I think I just learned off the back of that you don't have to do HIIT in order to shred per pounds, right? There's other ways of doing that. And so now I've kind of got these two things in my armory. If I need a quick fix and I want to, just haven't got the time to go and do 20,000 steps, I can jump on the cross trainer and do a HIIT session. Or if I have got the time, then, let's go out on a long walk and get the steps in. I think also the first time round was done during the winter months. The second time round was done during the summer months. So I think that was really interesting. But the Vagella grind, that started far sooner, I think, this time round. But what was interesting for me was the mindset that I had going into it. Like there was a fear the first time round because you don't know what to expect, right? And you hear this term, the Vagella grind. It's kind of like, what does that even mean, right? When you've never been on a journey before, what does that mean? It sounds intimidating in itself, and but this time round, there was a different mindset to that grind period. And I often refer to it as a kind of like, merge the two together because I was in the grind, but I had the right mindset. And so it's almost kind of this grind set or, grind set moment where you need to go through the process of grinding through the toughest part of your journey, but with the right mindset. And because I had that mindset this time round, I understood what I needed to do. I understood the challenges that are going to come with it. I understood I'm probably going to be a bit grumpy, and therefore I'm going to, adapt the way that I interact with the family. All of that kind of stuff. I understood that I'm going to get hungry really early, and therefore I didn't have my first meal until much later on in the day. All of these things that you learn in that first cycle, when you implement that the second time round, it really does become easier because it's a lifestyle that you're going through now and it's not a process. So for me, the whole journey this time round was completely different. I don't know. What about you?
Well, he just described childbirth. Literally. It's the same thing. Women will understand this because the first time you have no idea what you're doing, and the second time you know what's coming, so therefore you're in a better state of mind. So just going to put that. I could
probably say the same for the guys during childbirth. Second time around, the abuse you're going to get. The first time, you have no idea, and you're like, "What the hell did you just say to me?" Second time around, you just appreciate, you just like brush it off. So.
I think for me, the journey's been very different, I think, to be, because he had a very much like, I'm going to muscle build. And I was like, okay, great. I think for me, it became a bit more intrinsic because obviously through the first stage, I had that whole year and it was kind of a bit of a roller coaster. And so the second time, like B said, my mindset was different. I knew what I was going to expect and knew it all became very much second nature. But obviously my timing, because I did my photo shoot much later than B did. So
the first time,
so I literally did mine in like October, and then we did the podcast, and then I kind of had a couple of months and then went straight into the prep for September. we wanted to do this photo shoot together. So for me, it was slightly different. But I think what came out of it was the more intrinsic stuff. It was like after the first photo shoot, I kind of started to find this newfound confidence in myself that, it's almost like going into the gym and achieving certain things, like a chin up, for example, kind of elevated me slightly emotionally. Kind of gave me a bit more self-belief. I was like, well, if I can do that, then maybe I can do this in other parts of my life, which then obviously that year from that last podcast to now has really been about me putting what I've learned through RNT physically back out into other aspects of my life, whether it comes to the kids, setting up a new business, making the leap from leaving permanent working and a paid salary into doing something where I'm not getting paid at the moment. And I'm in this whole new world of learning about running your own business. And so everything kind of was more about what was going on inside, but using, for me, I walk into the gym now and that's my thinking space, where literally the TV might be on in the background, but, when I'm doing like RDLs or whatever, as much as I'm focusing on what that move or what I'm doing in particular, in the back of my head, there's little things, and I'll just come up with things. Like I'm very creative, so I'll come up with things. I just have this idea, and I'll quickly just write things down or whatever. So that was my cycle from January to September. That was my transition, and yes, I was doing another fat loss phase, but I was also doing a life-changing phase, and it all kind of worked in together, because by having that structure with you, our conversations would go on forever we talk about food and weight and whatever, but then it would be about the other stuff. That really helped to set me up, like to get me head focused, head down into life stuff. And that was for me where it really where things embedded. The bonus of the photo shoot was great. I don't think I physically changed as much.
Yeah, maybe you didn't have as much time on muscle building as I did. But...
No, but it was nice to have done it together.
Yeah,
because the first time we didn't do it together.
I think one reflection with you, Sital, is while you might not have built as much muscle just because of the time, I think if you were to do the shoot the first time with what you had going on the second time, I don't think it would have been possible.
Yeah.
Like trying to, you were setting up your business, you were going on holidays, you went on like 2-3 holidays at a time, you were setting up your business, everything with the kids. So would you have been able to do the shoot prep the first time around with all of that? Would have probably been quite difficult. But because you had that laid foundation of your 3 S's, it was a lot easier to integrate.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it became second nature as well. Like, food prep was on cycle, and, I knew instinctively, I could just look at the rice and know that it's 40 grams of rice, simple thing. Even going out, like I knew straight away, I can't have this, but I can have this. Or if I want to have that, I need to do something else about the front of my day. Making sure that, and I got to a point where actually I didn't really need to buffer as much. I just knew how to tweak things naturally without having to it just became a lot more fluid and a lot easier the second. I do recommend for people to go back out after the first time to make sure your 3 S's are embedded. Do a second round, because you learn so much more things about yourself that you probably didn't pick up the first time round.
Yeah, I think the second cycle for us wasn't about. I don't think we knew this at the time, so we wanted to do the photo shoot together before our 40th birthdays. So we're only 11 days apart in our birthdays. We're both born in October, and we had the photo shoot in September. So literally just before our 40th birthday, we did that photo shoot. And that was the intention of booking it in then. But I think we've both over the last year or so gone through personal development journey as well. So, Sital setting up her business, I can try and help as much as I can in the background whilst I'm doing my own thing at work. But we're both doing so much more in terms of self-education, self-development, reading a lot more. And lockdown has helped with this as well, because it's given us that capacity and time to do that. But, being able to read more, being able to think a little bit more creatively around how we function as a family. setting up Sital's business for sure has been one thing. We've got another thing that's bubbling in the background, which hopefully in the next sort of week or two we'll be able to sort of confirm and then push ahead with post lockdown with that business as well. And so if you think about the last year, we've gone from both having full-time jobs to now Sital running her own business, potentially setting up a second business as well in the background. Well, not potentially, we are. It's just going through some final pieces. And actually both being that much more self-developed through maybe the art that Sital's doing, the reading that I'm doing, the podcasts that we're listening to, all of this kind of stuff. Like I really enjoy listening to podcasts, not my own podcast. I'm just going to call it out there during my gym session. And because for me, it's wasted time if I don't use that wisely. Like some people love training to music, and that's what I used to do. And I used to do that when I was going to a gym. And the reason I did that was because there's too much noise and too much distraction in the gym on the floor, that for me, listening to music with my noise cancelling headphones was the right thing. As you know, we converted our garage a year and a half ago into a home gym. And so that's the other thing, the second time round, all of our training was done at home, not in a gym. But we've managed to create a fairly decent setup in our garage. And so when I train now in the garage, I don't like listening to music on headphones anymore. I use that time to listen to a podcast or to listen to an audiobook. And the same thing when I was doing my steps as well, because I was doing more steps this time round. That was just time to be able to learn and to be able to grow personally. I would, however, throw in the unplugged walk every so often, and actually even an unplugged gym session as well. And I don't know how many people can relate to an unplugged gym session, but like Sital was saying, sometimes you just think of stuff, midway through a bench press or something. I don't know what it is, where it's like, you know what? That's a really good idea, or I need to do this, or I need to, jot that down quickly. And straight after that set, you kind of get the notepad out and just jot it down so you don't forget about it. And so a lot of our thoughts and inspirations over the last year or so have come from that. And, Sital's launched this community on Facebook that's really kicked off. I've just launched another community only a couple of days ago, actually, and that's starting to pick up some traction as well. And that's come from conversations that we've been having when we're out walking, or thoughts that we've had individually when we've been training or doing our own thing in that respect. So there is this mindset shift that has definitely happened, and I don't know how, and I can't even pinpoint exactly when. I think, for me personally, but there's I'm a different person now with a lot more fire in my belly to want to grow personally for the greater good of my family.
I think for me, what's really come about, and I know this is a bit for Biraj as well because I've seen it in him, is that whole confidence piece. And I think for me, when I first started RNT 2.5, coming up to probably 3 years now, that I wasn't confident. Although outwardly, I was, like when talking to people or whatever. But over time, you kind of like your identity shifted and it kind of almost blurred. It became this kind of like haze. You were this person, but there was no definition to it. I think when I think back to the first time when we spoke, and I put up that email, that you kind of asked the question, why do you want to do this? To lose weight, to get healthier, to have better relationship with food. They're all valid reasons, and I don't knock them for a second. But there is always a very underlying why, and I think that had really come out for me, where suddenly I found my confidence again after the first photo shoot. I still wasn't there. Biraj has been telling me for 3-4 years, set your own business up, and I never acted on it because I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it. And even my dad, before he passed away, I think 3-4 years before that, he was pushing me badly. He goes, go and, here, I'm giving you this opportunity, go and set, you can do this, this and this. And I just didn't do it because I didn't believe in myself. And now when I think back to my why, it was to find an identity. It was to find who I am and then re-identify myself. So I think the first photo shoot kind of allowed me to identify myself as, there's this person, I am strong, I can lift weights, I can go through this whole entire process with all the ups and downs with it and come out really well at the end of it. And then the second part was that re-identifying myself as this person who is continuing to be strong and continue to grow, but grow with self-confidence to say, well, actually, you can do X, Y, and Z. And it was really like having that platform bedded down that allowed me to then make the steps up to go and say, right, the business and leave my job and, being more confident with people, going to learn to ride a bike or getting back on a bike again, and all of those things. And I've noticed that with Biraj as well. It's kind of almost you've re-identified yourself as a person because you've dealt with the outward stuff, but then you've also started dealing with the inward stuff. And that was a really big thing for me, and that was a big takeaway from this thing. And actually, if I look at my why now, my why is really about the long term, and it's really about continuing to build that, continue to grow as a person, but also, I want to be able to know that in the future for my kids, especially in this environment that we're with COVID, we talked about this the other day actually, that you want to make sure you're going to do whatever you can to be here, present, healthy in all aspects for your family. We have got 2 kids who are relying on us, and it's really important that we are here. And, when I was doing, even today, when I don't know what exercise I was doing now, and I was thinking about this, I think I was doing Bulgarian split squats. Everyone hates them, but I kind of like them now. And I was just thinking, for me, coming up to 41, to be, lifting 20s and doing Bulgarian split squats, I'm doing all right. And I think it's
doing better than I am.
But yeah, I'm doing okay. This is great. And that's now what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking about, if I can lift, hip thrust 100 plus kg, whatever. If I can keep doing that and be like your dad and continue to do chin-ups, that's great.
I think also this whole COVID-19 pandemic has really made me think about just how important being healthy and having, the right lifestyle is. And don't get me wrong, there's some really unlucky people out there who are fit and healthy and have still been hit by this disease. But in the majority, it's those that have underlying conditions that are suffering a lot more. And, there's so much focus right now around personal protective equipment. And for me, a healthy lifestyle and a healthy diet and exercise and movement is the only personal protective equipment you need, right? Like, if you can do that, that already is protecting you to some extent. I'm not saying you're immune, it's not going to solve the problem, but to some extent, whether it's COVID, whether it's the standard flu, it doesn't matter what it is. If you are fit and healthy, as much as you can be, you're going to stand that much more of a chance of fighting whatever your body is going through. And therefore it just brings home even more the importance of looking after yourself. And if you look after yourself, we've seen it firsthand how it transpires onto those that are around you. And so I can't stress how important that is. And we maybe we realize that a little bit later on in life. And so for those who are younger than us that are on this journey, well done to you. You guys you're doing something that's so important, that's going to protect you for your future, for your family's future. But at the same time, for those who are older that have started, again, hats off, because you've done something about it. And age is only a number, and we've seen that on the number of transformations that you guys have done from youngsters all the way through to those in their 50s. And everyone has smashed it. We've got 50-year-olds that are killing it, we've got 20-year-olds that are killing it, right? The point is they've done something about it. And I think it's so easy to be able to talk about, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. You just got to get off your ass and do it, right? I think is the harsh reality of this. And, you know, the number of people that we've managed to inspire to do this through the podcast and what have you is great. But also, I know a number of people that have contacted me wanting to, you know, get onto this journey. And I've been open and honest with them and said, you know what, I don't think right now you have the right mindset to do this, because I know that they're not going to be able to stop going out and drinking with their mates. I know that they love their food too much and they don't have the right focus and commitment or whatever it may be. And so my advice to them is do it, but do these things first, right? Like focus on why you want to do this. Focus on what is the driver behind this. The driver shouldn't be, oh, Biraj and Sital did this and therefore I'm going to do that. The driver is much deeper than that. And you really need to find what that thing is that hooks you emotionally to the end outcome. And the end outcome is not the photo shoot, by the way. The end outcome is a lifestyle that transforms the rest of your life. And sorry?
Yeah.
It's vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's the number of analogies and quotes and stuff throughout the 2.5 years of RNT that we've been with is brilliant, right? And you hear it over and over and over again. And the reason you hear it over and over and over again is because it's true, right? And like I saw the post today, even Boris has started using the analogies. You know, that's how infectious it. That's how infectious it is, right? Yeah. But it's true. It really is. And so, I just, you know, like I said, if you're on the journey, well done, because you're on the journey. And if you're not on that journey yet and you're thinking about doing it, then please, you know, just understand your why first, really, really well. Because if you don't understand the why, it's so easy to fall off that wagon or to not have the systems and structures in place.
But also just to be prepared to make sacrifices. Things don't happen overnight. You've got to invest the time. You've got to invest, like you said, if your lifestyle is about drinking, food, whatever, there are concessions, 100%. But there's going to be a point where you're going to have to give up that stuff. I mean, Biraj and I don't drink, but there are things that Biraj and I do sacrifice on a day-to-day basis in order to maintain what we're doing, but not to the extreme.
Like we might have the odd drink, or like we don't really have alcohol in the house.
No, I don't. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, but
even when we go out, like might have the odd drink or something like that. Nothing major.
Yeah. But it would be like things like, you know, like I've been baking with the kids, so there is actually going to be cake. Or when you're in a family unit, there are crisps and biscuits and stuff lying around. So you
just have to be that bit more disciplined.
Yeah, you just have to understand that instead of having 20, you might just have 2.
Talk about that, because we're talking about now the lifestyle solution, and since your last shoot in September, that's very much been the way, especially you, Sital, you've been going towards that lifestyle solution. Just like, how can you essentially have your cake and eat it? I know Biraj is still going for those numbers and the muscle mass, but both of you ultimately are looking for that lifestyle solution.
Yeah, definitely.
What are some of the tenets of this, and what it really, you mentioned earlier about the identity change, which I think there's 3, it always comes down to 3 parts: the identity, behavior, and mindset. But talk about how you've built your own lifestyle solution so that you can ultimately have your cake and eat it and stay in shape throughout the year.
So I kind of recently went through a bit of a thing. So it's one of the podcasts that triggered it, where I've converted to going sort of vegan, almost like plant-based, because I developed a bit of psoriasis at the back of my head. I thought it was eczema, and it isn't, it's psoriasis. So I have done that shift over, and that was a bit of a big one, because I didn't really realise actually how much dairy I was having. I didn't think dairy was going to cause that issue, but obviously it does. Since I've come off it has improved greatly. So I've been kind of going round about it on sort of gut health. But not to say that I don't have the odd biscuit here or there. I should cringe and say that, really. But yeah, it does happen. And I do bake a lot with the kids, especially in this time. And really it's just knowing your balance. So I still don't have breakfast at like first thing in the morning. Even you don't as well. I think it can be even up to 11 o'clock. I mean, to be honest, between waking up and 11, it's manic anyway. I don't even think about food. I'll have a decaf coffee maybe once a week before a run, or have a hot cup of tea. Yeah. You know, I have a plant-based chai latte or something, and then we don't normally tend to have anything till 11.
But that, for me, that's come from the process second time round, where I wholly appreciated when you're on limited calories. If you don't eat until 11 o'clock, it just makes the rest of the day so much easier. And for me, it just became like normal to do that. Like, I'd have nothing before I leave when I go to work, and then I would walk to the station. I would, from Paddington to work, I would walk again. By the time I'm at work, settle in, check a few emails, have a coffee. Before I know it, it's already like 10 o'clock. And then I would just delay it for another half an hour or so and have my breakfast between 10:30 and 11. And then it means you're just, at the usual lunchtime, you're not actually hungry anymore. And I have my big sort of protein oats with fruit and, all that kind of stuff in it, and it's still, for me, it's still the most enjoyable meal that I have every day. I love it, and I look forward to that. But I don't crave that first thing in the morning anymore.
No, and I think by doing that was definitely like shortening the window from breakfast to dinner. Really helps us, like really keeps us in that zone. And then I think it's kind of making those you naturally, like, I'll naturally buffer. If I know, for example, we're doing like a fakeaway night, I kind of naturally hold back. Like I might have like a really late breakfast and maybe have a really light lunch and then, hold it back for dinner. But I don't kind of measure any of that. I don't track them. I kind of know internally.
Even terminology wise, like before, I remember specifically saying, we need to buffer today. I don't think we've used the word buffer in the last year and a half. Like, now it's just become, you kind of just know how to do that, right?
You kind of like know your volume, also you know how you're feeling, like the hunger levels. Like I can tell straight away, like, is this really hunger or is this just me like thinking, like someone, I can't remember who said it on RNT. Someone said, if you're starting to crave something that you shouldn't really be eating, ask yourself, would an apple suffice?
Yeah, I remember that. I can't remember who it was though.
I don't know who it was, but credit to you, whoever said that, because now I think, actually, if I had a chocolate biscuit and apple, but my only choice was to eat the apple, would that suffice? And if my answer is like, no, I wouldn't eat that, then I shouldn't really eat the other thing. So that's how I now approach things. I kind of ask myself that question and be like, let's put that away, but would you eat this right now if that was the only option? No, I wouldn't. I'm just eating for the sake of it. I kind of know my emotions. And a lot of me eat food related stuff is emotionally emotional. Sometimes you head for the biscuit jar or whatever because you're stressed out or you're tired or whatever. So I think it's dealing with that. And now I'm kind of signed on to recognizing those signs.
I think also for me, certainly over the last 6-7 weeks, I've not been meal prepping like I should be. I've been way more fluid in terms of my food, but typically I'm still only keeping to 3 meals a day, and that first meal is much later on. But I think where people can really lose the momentum is when you let go of your food and you let go of your training. And for me, let go is not the right word. I've loosened on the food front a little bit over the last sort of 6-7 weeks during lockdown in particular, but I haven't let go of the training. And I just before lockdown had picked up a thigh strain playing football, and so I had to adapt my training slightly and haven't been able to train legs as much as we were planning to this time round. But that's okay. That doesn't mean that I don't go to the gym and work extra hard on the other elements as well. And so I think you've got to keep one of those two really solid. And what I found is that the other one, you might be able to flex slightly as long as you've got the right structures in place. And you can flip that around the other way. So like when we went on holiday, for example, the food we kept kind of on point, but our training wasn't as solid as it could have been because the gym wasn't as good, or it didn't have the right weights or whatever it may be. And so if we know that the gym element is not going to be there, then the food is on point. If we know that the food's going to be a little bit kind of flexible, then the gym is on point. And the ideal, and we know this now, like when it comes to the next summer holiday or whatever, and you want to get into, good beach body shape again, both needs to be on point. And so for me, I think that's been really interesting. And over the last 6 weeks, my weight has pretty much stayed stable, implementing that strategy. So it works, right? I know that works as long as we're not focusing on the wrong things. Sorry, it's our dog in the back. As long as we're not focusing on the wrong things, and that being both the training side and the food side. So I think that for me is something that has been a key point really this time around.
Some level of water regulation.
Yeah, water-wise now, to be fair, don't really think about it. Just drink water.
Auto regulation.
Water.
I said water regulation.
No. Auto regulation.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think also, like, Biraj's a bit more fluid, but I kind of like structure. So I tend to kind of know, like, Sunday to Thursdays are like school nights. So I treat mine as school nights. So I've meal prepped, for example, like I'll meal prep for the Sunday to Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday is a bit more fluid because you want to kind of chill out with the kids. And I also don't want the kids to they're used to knowing that mummy is slightly different, but they know why. But on those days, I actually integrate my food plan into the family meal in its own funny little way. So like the other day we talked about, like, on what day did Saturday we did ping pong. But I still had my tofu. I still had my, instead of rice, I had noodles. And the only addition was having gyozas, which I only had 2 or 3 of them, but made sure that they weren't like fried or anything. Yeah. So you can still do it and keep to a food plan, but integrating it into your family. And I think quite a few people have done that in terms of recipes and tweaking things. So, but I find keeping that structure baseline. There was a period where I was doing what Biraj was doing and not meal prepping. So when I first transitioned out of full-time work and then into this own business stuff, I thought, I've got time, I can meal prep every day. And no, that did not work.
One of the first things we said we got to implement again, right?
Yeah, I was getting really stressed out because I was just like, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this. And actually meal prepping all the way. Those black tubs still stay firmly in my fridge. I find that does help. But even on holiday, what we found is we'd balance breakfast and lunch. Like we'd keep those like quite tight. Like we just make sure it's protein based. So I remember when we were doing the September photo shoot, we literally 2 weeks before we came back from holiday.
Well, we were on a all-inclusive holiday 2 weeks before our shoot. Yeah. But both of us came back the same weight that we went.
Yeah.
Because we worked with you to really lock in a plan over those 2 weeks, and we were still hitting 20,000 steps on holiday.
Yeah. I was doing like 3 5K runs or something.
Yeah, we were just we're just alternating. One of us would be in the pool with the kids, and the other one would go for a walk, and then he'd come back, and then I'd go for a walk, and then we'd spend time, a few hours with the kids together, and then I got another walk again, and then all going. Yeah, we could just kind of worked it out. But I remember just having kind of no carbs for breakfast and lunch, and then we'd have a really good meal in the evening. I even had the odd ice cream or piece of cake or whatever it may be, but it was amazing. Actually, it was quite nice because you kind of always go on a holiday and you always see that one really annoying person by the pool that is just like ripped and in top shape. And I was like 2 weeks away from the photo shoot, and I was that person on that holiday, and there was this kind of like really good feeling that I'm in probably one of the best shapes I've been in second time round. So I built a little bit more muscle mass, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the gym was pretty decent there at that hotel, considering, and we had a really strong commitment to not screw things up over that holiday because we had the photo shoot in 2 weeks' time. And so actually, in a weird way, we learned a lot about how to manage holidays. In that one experience, purely because the photo shoot was so close. And so now, like when we then went on a holiday in October for our 40th birthday, and it was our first holiday without the kids in 10 years. And even there, like we were doing was it like that? How long was that hike that we went on?
God, that's like what?
It took us like 3.5, 4 hours or something, like this hike from Oya to Fira, which is one of the scenic hikes in Santorini. And, it's kind of like we were on holiday together for the first time in 10 years without kids. You'd expect people to just chill by the pool and do nothing. Yet we were doing like hikes and stuff like that, which, I don't think we ever would have done before. But just sitting by the pool all day just isn't in our DNA anymore to kind of, just be so kind of lazy and sedentary and whatever.
But even day to day, like I can naturally do 6,000 steps in my house.
Yeah, without thinking about it.
No problem. Yeah. Without even thinking about it. And the funny thing is, when people say to me, how do you get your steps in? I'll be like, well, that's easy. If I'm cooking something, like, for example, even if I'm making my breakfast and it requires 5 ingredients, I'll go to the fridge, get one ingredient, go back to that spot by the sink, use that one ingredient, go back to the fridge again, and literally go back and forth. And I don't realise I'm doing it. And one day he said it to me, because you're so annoying. Why can't you just get everything with you in one go? And I'm like, no, because I've just trained myself naturally just to keep doing one back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even like through the day, I like literally don't think we even sit down. Yeah. Like I can eat, 100%. Like I just think we've naturally we just go. And our kids are like that now, unfortunately. Like watching a movie with our two is impossible because they just fidget so much.
It's been a journey for sure.
One hell of a journey. So let's talk about what you're doing now then. So talk about cup tea, talk about let loose with tea, talk about man's draw. Your chance to just talk about what you're doing now before we wrap up.
Yeah, so Cup Tea obviously we were planning this huge launch. So Cup Tea was going to be is this little clever little cup, which I know you put on a Facebook Live. It's got its own clever little built-in infuser with loose leaf tea at the bottom, and all you do, so there's no tea bag. It's all fully compostable. You just add hot water and you've got an amazing cup of tea, and can be reinfused. The whole point around it was that we were going to service sort of food service industries, hospitality, travel, leisure, you name it. And then COVID happened, which was fine. It's all good. My business partner and I then decided, right, okay, well, we can't do anything, so let's just give. So with the help of Rushab and a few other people, we donated loads of cups of tea to NHS, to A&E wards, whatever, because that was a point when it was peaking into COVID, which has been fantastic. Off the back of that, one of the things that kind of we were wanting to do for ages was to set up a community. So that's when Let Loose with Tea came about, and it's literally, I had no idea I knew tea was a commonality amongst a lot of people. Hot beverages generally are, because people meet over tea, but I didn't realise actually how passionate people are about it, in terms of, even from drinking tea to like dunking biscuits into tea, which biscuits are the best biscuits to dunk into tea, whether you should put your milk in first, your sugar first, all of those things. And from it's been going, 4 weeks? 4 weeks, we've got about 600 people on there. We're doing these weekly Facebook Lives, which you're on it next week, called Thirsty Thursdays. And so far we've had topics from people who work in the NHS. We've had teachers on talking about homeschooling. We've had GCSE A-level students talking about COVID and the impact of their exams and the future. We've got loads of stuff lined up in the coming weeks. They seem to be kind of tapping into day-to-day life.
How can people join? Is it open for anyone to join?
Yeah. Anyone who loves tea and doesn't mind a bit of distraction, that's what it is. We're finding, it's quite intense at the moment, and I think people are looking for ways to distract themselves away from COVID talk and away from the stresses of homeschooling. Sometimes it's lightheartedness or something, and somewhere just to talk about nothing. Come and find us. We're on Facebook, and then we do weekly lives every Thursday, and it's just a great platform just to meet like-minded people who love tea and dunking biscuits. If you love dunking biscuits and tea, it's a great place.
Great. We'll put the link in the show notes. So if you fancy a dunking contest, go join Sital's group. And Biraj, you've recently set up a new group as well.
Yeah, literally just a couple of days ago, actually.
Yeah.
And this kind of came from a conversation we were having on one of our walks. Actually, we were walking the dog one evening, and we were talking about Sital's group and how interesting it was around the type of people that have joined, the conversations that are being had, and the demographic and things like that. And we were talking about how I was talking about a few things that are going on personally around kind of career and what's going on in my career and the directions and the kind of things that I want to be doing and how I want to continue doing stuff that play to my strengths in particular. And one of the things that I've recently done is started to work with an executive coach that's helped me think a little bit more about what's important for me, what are the values that I live by, and what do I want to be doing going forward that aligns to those values and strengths. And one of the things that kind of sits really strongly with me is around helping people. I'm a people person, and at the moment it's very difficult to be able to have that physical conversation with people. And the success of Sital's group kind of inspired me to then create the Mandrill Discussions. And the name really is it comes from the man drawer. Everyone has a man drawer, and in that man drawer are just a variety of different things, from batteries to old phones to wires to receipts to whatever it may be. And kind of the analogy being that it's one place where you can just dump so many different things. And so the Mandrill Discussions basically was born out of that, which is a group specifically for men to talk about so many different things, and in particular things that men maybe stereotypically don't talk about, or may feel uncomfortable, ashamed, whatever it may be, to maybe to talk about openly, or to talk about with their partners or friend circle. And
it wasn't just that though. Like, it was interesting because on last week when we had the Facebook Live, one of the guys that came on to talk about A levels and GCSE, he was a boy. He was like 17. He even talked about like about mental health.
Yeah.
And you could see it's not a comfortable thing for guys to talk about mental health. It's a huge thing. And I think in a ballroom, it's really difficult. Even with Biraj, like, I know he'll shut down on certain things. He won't he'll physically may react to something emotionally, but he won't ever articulate it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting.
Can I ask what that would be?
It could be anything. Like, if he's stressed out at work, I know, like, he'll react in a slightly different way. Like, he might snap at the kids a bit quicker, but it won't be anything to do with the kids. It will just be because he's just stressed out about something outside of the house.
Yeah.
So I think it's very hard for guys to maybe articulate certain things, or even to ask a question. Like, Biraj is very, open. Like, grooming is very important to him. It's one of the biggest growing markets. Male grooming grows. The growth goes far past women's. The growth of men's grooming salons alone. But men genuinely will have questions. For women, there's loads of places for us to go.
Yeah.
There are a plethora of YouTubers or Instagrammers all showing us how to do the perfect eyeliner or whatever. Now, those Instagrammers for men are coming through, but then there is this taboo around it of male grooming, laser, hair removal. And that's been the interesting thing. So the group has only been up for a couple of days. I think we're at about 140 members already. And it's not about the number of members. Mm-hmm. If it's got 10 members and we can make a difference with 10 members, that's great. If it's got 1 million members, that's great as well. It doesn't really matter how many members we have, but if we can make a difference and allow men to be able to open up about subjects and topics that they don't usually feel comfortable to talk about, then so be it. And in the 2.5, 3 days that we've been up and running, we've already had threads around dealing with stress and anxiety. We've already had threads around what
clippers are you using to cut your hair in lockdown? We've already had stuff around, what is your sort of male kind of guilty pleasure film? We've always one really interesting topic was around about appreciation of other men and how they look and how they dress and how they act. And one member was like, okay, I often admire what other people look like, but not in a weird way, just because I'm really interested and really intrigued. And I remember as a young child myself, often being mocked about being really particular about my clothes and about my hair, and people always used to tease me about that. But the fact of the matter is, that's what I'm into, right? I like wearing nice clothes. I like my hair looking good, whatever it may be. And that's okay. And it's okay to appreciate when you see someone else that's got a really good style or a really good haircut or whatever it may be. And, I have gone up to strangers on a training platform and said, oh, I really like your shoes. And, the appreciation that you get back around that is really interesting, because I think they probably want to do the same, but quite often don't have the confidence to do that. So look, I don't really know where it's going to go. I really hope it can go somewhere. For all the guys that are listening, please, come and join us. It's called the Mandrill Discussions. Anyone can join. And
by the way, I have no idea what goes on the group. I have no access to it.
Well, yeah, it was
put out there. I just helped him born the idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's a man's only group.
And I may give him a bit of advice, but I genuinely don't know. I just realised it might have sounded like I knew what I was going to do.
Well, no, not at all, right? I mean, I just shared with you some of the topics that you didn't even know about, and that's the point. That I can have some of those discussions now in a forum that's safe, non-judgmental. That I probably wouldn't have with yourself or with my other female friends, for example. And I think that's the key thing. So hopefully it goes somewhere. Let's see. But come and join us and let's try and make a difference in this world.
Amazing. So I'll put those links in the show notes. We've got Man's Draw Discussions and Let Loose with T, both great groups for different reasons. So definitely go check them out and join them. Any parting words for the listeners?
Look, I think I'm going to echo what Biraj said. I think for those who are on the journey and even doing it in the current climate, hats off to you. You've started a great process. Do emphasize, the start. You're always going to struggle. There's nothing wrong with struggle. Struggling doesn't mean there's any failure. This process is going to test you, but allow it to test you, because that's where you really learn about yourself. Just embrace it and just go for it. There have been some really great examples out there, even post us, of amazing transformations, and well done. It's a fantastic journey. We've been with RNT for coming up to 3 years now, I think, and we've loved every moment of it. It's not just been about the fitness side, it's been about the life side, and how the both have just come together really nicely. And we really truly appreciate that relationship now more than ever. Because it's given us the foundation to do some amazing stuff that we probably may not have done, or may not have done as probably best as we probably could have, if we hadn't have gone through this journey in the first place.
Yeah, I think for me, it's people will often come into the journey for a physical change, but be open-minded, because you will end up not only with a physical change, but a mental change as well. And, it's fine for us to say 3 years down the line that that's what happens. For those that have just started the journey, you may not realize that right now. And you may not even realize it in a year or two's time as well. But actually, subconsciously, your mind is changing through the journey, and you will be doing things that when you look back in time, you'll realize you did that because of all of the structures and systems and things like that you've put into place through your physical journey. That really does make a big difference. And that retrospect is really interesting. At work we use agile methodologies, and at the end of each sprint you basically do a retrospective to look back at what went well and what didn't go well. I advise everyone to have a retrospective and go back and look at the things that you've done and ask yourself whether you would have done that if you hadn't joined RNT and hadn't joined the journey. And I think a lot of people will be surprised that they probably wouldn't have done that had they put all of these other structures in place. So yeah, be open-minded. You're on the journey. If you're listening to this, that's already step one. You're either listening to this because you're part of the RNT family already, or you're listening to this because you're probably about to, or you're thinking about it, or you're listening to this and you haven't even made a decision yet. But just, go with your gut. Go 100% in. Like, don't go in if you're not going to be 100% committed to that change. But I think we are proof in the pudding that nearly 2.5, 3 years down the line, we are thinking of, have set up a business, in the process of setting up another business, have got Facebook groups that are out there to try and do the good of others, have got a really, really well connected family environment, and that's really fantastic. Just to add to that, that doesn't mean we don't have our own struggles. That doesn't mean that we don't bicker, we don't argue. I'm not trying to say we have the perfect life, because I don't think anyone has a perfect life. All it means is that it makes the whole structure that you operate in that much easier when you've got all these fundamentals in place.
Also, what I would say as well, with people who have got kids and a busy family life, don't be scared. Like, don't fear. Like, don't say to yourself, I can't do this because of kids, or I don't have time, or because it's really, there have been times when I've been a bit like, but it's fine. You've given me the great advice. Like, really map out your day, and actually say to yourself, have I got time for this? Question yourself, because you do have time. It might mean that you might have to streamline certain things. The best thing you can do for yourself is look after yourself first. It's the whole analogy around, when you're on a crashing plane, you've got to put the face mask on yourself first before you can help someone else. And I think that's really important to understand. Like, I'll be honest, if I didn't look after myself first, or if I hadn't gone through this process, I don't know where I would have ended up. I don't think I'd be as confident or as self-assured as I am today. That's 100% sure. I feel like don't be fearful of the journey. Don't think you can't do this. We've got kids on two different, got one that's 10 and 5, and they're all both on their own individual journey, and they're 2 boys, and they're really active, and they always want our attention. You can do this because there is enough hours in the day. We've all got the same 24 hours. It's just how you carve it up. Yeah,
like I said, the journey is your own personal protective equipment.
Yeah.
So go out there and get your own PPE.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, guys.
No worries. Thank you for having us again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.